Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another fine session of Level Up Training. Thrilled you're here. We'll give a few minutes for everyone to get to join the meeting here. I'm sure we'll have several folks be trickling in over the next few minutes. Per usual, I want to go ahead and share my screen. I'll put up our icebreaker question as we're waiting for everyone to join. You'll notice your serial number before your name today because we've assigned a number to each and every one of you. I think that's just a technical thing. Jordan's going to rapidly change all your names so you don't have a number in front of you because you're humans, not robots. Go ahead and share. And today we're going to talk about retention. We're going to continue down this road talking about the new donor welcome series. Last month we were talking about, you've got all these new donors coming in the door. What do you do with them? And this month, as we're shifting to focus specifically on retention, we're going to finish out that new donor welcome series template that we started into last month. So I'll share a bit more about that in a moment of where we're going today. But as you're getting settled and jumping in, feel free to open the chat and let me know. I mean, we're in the middle of February at this point. Do you have any favorite kind of like winter activities? I could probably guess at some of them because we're all Coloradans here. And I bought my own skis like last week, so I feel like I'm fully acclimated. Felt very proud. Anyway, jump in the chat. Let me know what's your favorite winter activity, whether that's snowboarding, that's skiing, that's snowshoeing, or it's not going outside for 5 months while you drink hot chocolate and eat soup. Let me know. We've got a few responses. Joan likes to sit by the fireplace, not a fan of the cold. Stay strong, Joan. Stay strong. Cross country skiing, very nice. Walking in the snow, skiing, already sledding with my 4 kids. That's really fun. Our kids had never sledded before because we lived in Texas. And that's been just like the best thing to go down the street to the park. And there's a big sledding hill down there. It's been a lot of fun. Fireplace too from Rochelle with something hot to drink. Yeah, that's especially like when the snow's falling, just staring out the window, just beautiful, sipping a cup of, I don't know, tea, hot chocolate, whatever floats your boat. Skiing during a warm bluebird day. Fireplace for Kay. Well, keep dropping those thoughts in there. It's really fun to see kind of what you're likely up to during these cold days. Again, we're focusing on retention today. A little bit of housekeeping before we dive in. What I'm hoping that we can get through and accomplish today is really 2 main things. Most important one is number 1. By the end of this session, I want you to be confident that you're able to go develop a cohesive new donor welcome series that is specifically aimed at retaining new donors. As we talked about last month, there's a lot of different kind of goals that we have as we build out a new donor welcome series. But at the end of the day, the one thing that it must do is help drive better retention. So we'll talk about that. Secondly, we are going to spend a little bit of time towards the end of our session today looking at a few different things around kind of the data and technology side, because I would hate for you to get to the end of this session and even through the homework that we'll have and have just a bunch of email copy that sits in a document for the next 6 months. I want you to know exactly what you're going to need to do to be able to actually install the new donor welcome series, because it is one of the most critical initiatives that you can actually go implement. And we'll look at that, some data around that in a moment. But I want you to start already thinking about, okay, after I get through the creative side of this and the strategy side, what do we need to put in place to make sure we can actually go launch it? So we'll spend a little bit of time there. Ultimately, your homework for this session and for the next kind of 30 days until the next session in March is I have a full worksheet that we just called the New Donor Welcome Series Framework. And it's a series of questions where you can go kind of fill out the document that's going to help be your guide as you think through the copy that you want to include in all the various emails, the different things you're going to offer. It's going to help you think through what are the emails that I am going to send. Am I going to do the whole 8 email template? Am I going to do 4 or 5? When am I going to send them? All those different things is going to help you work through that framework. So before we jump back into the template, I do want to spend just a moment talking about why retention is so important. And I won't overwhelm you with data today, but I was putting together a webinar that I taught last week for another group. And in doing so, I was looking at some of the most recent reports from Giving USA. And they haven't released, unless it's come out in the past 7 days, they haven't released like the 2024 giving data yet. But I was looking to see like what's happening in individual giving. What are the trends as of late? Because if you're like most other organizations, what you probably saw in your data in 2020 was that giving was rough in 2020, the year that the pandemic kicked off. And then in 2021, most organizations actually saw giving like explode. There's a big giant spike for many organizations in 2021. We call it the COVID giving bump. And I think for a lot of fundraisers and a lot of leaders at organizations who they saw this big spike in giving come in and then started to plan their future with this new expectation that like we've pivoted, the word of the year in 2020, we pivoted to this like digital approach, and now we're seeing all the fruit of that, where giving is exploding. And so we're just going to see this keep going for years to come. And the reality was 2022 hit and everything fell back to earth. And so now watching over the following 3 years, what's actually happened in individual giving, particularly if you adjust for the incredible inflation we've also had in the same time, individual giving is down 15% over a 3-year period. So we thought it was going to be way up here, and now it's on a slide. And what's really interesting is one of the key reasons I think that this is happening is that, you know, we spend a ton of time in our programs and in our strategy as we're thinking about how do we grow giving. We're so focused most of the time on acquisition, thinking about how do we go reach new donors? How do we go tap into some new audiences? Maybe we're creating some new partnerships with like-minded organizations to go kind of share donor lists and that sort of stuff. In a lot of cases, I hear a lot of people talking about how do we go reach younger donors and reach the next generation and bring all these new people into the fold. But the reality is that acquisition is not keeping up with rapidly declining retention. So there's a partner organization of ours called Avid, and I've shared some of their data with you before. We looked at some of their benchmarking during the year-end season. As we look at this they have a benchmark of about 100 organizations at the moment, and looking at retention rates over time is really interesting. These rates are probably higher than the average organization. What I typically see as we look at like industry level benchmarks is average retention for an organization sits around sort of 42, 43%. It fluctuates a little bit in there. So these are really high retention rates, but look at the trend. The trend is that over 5 years, we've dropped 10 percentage points, which is not good. So retention is going down even as we're trying to lean into acquisition to compensate, and we're not compensating enough. And so individual giving is on the decline, which is why we're talking about retention and the new donor welcome series today. Jordan shared this with me earlier this week as she's looking at data related to specifically coloradogives.org organizations. Returning donors give at least 3 times more than a new donor on coloradogives.org. So the impact, the potential impact, not just on your bottom line, but on your ability to actually go execute on your mission is directly attached to your ability to go retain donors. And so that's why we're going to continue to focus on the new donor welcome series today, because it is probably the most important, most critical initiative that you can go implement if you're trying to move the needle on retention. So that's where we're going to go today. Feel free, if you got any questions about any of that data, feel free to drop them in. And as we're going through today, as always, drop your thoughts, drop your commentary. If I can stop and clarify something, I would love to. Some questions we might hold till the end or till later, and we can explore those. But yeah, let's have an open conversation in the chat, and we'll answer any questions you have as we go. Here's where we went last month. We talked about the thank you email, and we talked about the welcome email. And if you did your homework, and I actually haven't checked yet to see who all did your homework, but if you did your homework, you should have your welcome email already written and ready to go. Hopefully you're already in a place where that's done, it's implemented, because that is one of the most critical things. Just get some communication out to start the relationship and welcome people sort of into the fold, communicating that there's a community of like-minded people that are all working together to solve a very common problem that you all kind of share amongst donors in the organization. Now where we're going to go is talking about what are those other kind of milestones along the way in the first 30 days of someone being a new donor that we can communicate about, that can cultivate people, ultimately lead them to potentially upgrade their gift to a monthly gift, and then transition them over to sort of the ongoing cultivation communication that your organization hopefully has in place already. That said, let's jump into the content offer email. We're going to spend the most time today on this email because I think it has the most moving pieces. So if you notice, we're taking a good amount of time on this first one, you're checking your time like, we're not going to make it today. It's because we're going to spend a little extra time here, and then we're going to move a little bit faster through some of these other emails because y'all are pros at this point. You've gone through email optimization training, donation page optimization training. Now we're just talking about how do you contextualize it in a few unique ways. Let's go. Content offer email. Here is sort of the flow of what we're trying to accomplish with the content offer email. We have talked about this email and this approach during our prep for Colorado Gives Day, during our prep for year end. But you can apply this outside of a campaign. This can happen you can use this model for acquisition, you can use this model for cultivation, for retention, and a whole bunch of different applications. This is effectively what it looks like. We're going to send an email that is promoting some sort of content offer. What I mean by content offer is effectively something that's free, some piece of valuable content that's free that I can then go get access to by giving you my email address. Now, you already have their email address, so you don't need it, but that act of filling out the form, again, with first name, last name, email, helps people feel that what they're about to get is actually really valuable. There's a kind of it's a no cost transaction that takes place that helps people see that this thing that I'm getting access to is valuable and gets an extra level of commitment, which is going to lead to their increased likelihood of potentially giving on the other side. So we're going to send an email. They're going to come to a landing page where they read more about the content offer. In this case, on your screen, it's an ebook from the Hoover Institution. You can read more about it. You can fill out a form. You can say, get your free copy now. You hit the button. And what happens right away is there's an automation that happens in the background to go send an email to their inbox with a link to actually go download the ebook or access the course or whatever the content offer is. On the front end, on the page, on the website, you then land on a confirmation page. That is not a typical confirmation page. It does not talk about sharing this resource on Facebook or X or Instagram or whatever your platform of choice is. It says thank you. It confirms that the resource is on its way to your inbox, and then it immediately pivots towards a donation appeal. And that donation appeal is usually contextualized so that it's talking about the offer in some way, shape, or form. Hey, you just downloaded this really great thing. You're going to get a ton of value out of it. We want to go reach more people with this offer because we think it can accomplish X, Y, and Z related to our mission. Would you give to be able to go make a greater impact? Something like that is usually how these pages are framed. That's at least a good starting point, and you can test your way into a lot of different forms and approaches to your value proposition. That's the flow. To just simplify it, you're sending an email, so you go to a landing page to download an offer, and then you land on an instant donation page where you now have the opportunity to respond to this kind of free resource with an act of giving, an act of generosity, and an act of gratitude. That's the model. We unpack so much more of this in depth, all the minutia in our online donor acquisition course, which you have access to. So if you want to dive deeper, you can go check out that course. The email itself is where we're going to focus today, though. Ultimately, when you're writing this email, again, you've thanked them for their gift, you've now welcomed them, and now we're starting into some more kind of intentional cultivation. The goal of this email is threefold. We're trying to increase their, what we would call their competency, the donor's competency, really their sort of intelligence and understanding about the cause, about the issues, about the thing that they're trying to impact with their gift. Ultimately, this resource that we're sharing is intended to be educational, not just some kind of free giveaway, but something that's going to help them get a greater understanding of the cause, the problem that they're trying to solve through their giving, that your organization is trying to solve, the additional impact that they can make when they give. Secondly, we're trying to increase autonomy. This is not you necessarily holding their hand and having to sit down and explain all the different minutia around the cause. You're giving them some autonomy in their ability to go pace themselves as they educate themselves about the cause. And then third, you're getting that level of commitment. Again, by having that form on the page where you're not just sending them a link to an article that's really passive, maybe they read it, maybe they don't. They have to show up with some level of commitment to engage with the offer, which is not just commitment to the offer itself, but it's commitment to you and it's commitment to the cause. And it tells their own brain that this is something that I care about and starts to build in this greater sense of connectedness to the cause and to your organization. a variety of people you could send this from. These first few emails, again, we're usually sending from the executive director, maybe the chief development officer. I would encourage you to vary your senders every now and again, because that change of a sender name in the inbox can sometimes be a nice little interrupter and get someone to open your email. But you can choose kind of from the list there for your different senders. I have a checklist for you as you put your copy together for this email. I'll have one of these for every email that we look at. I'm not necessarily going to read all of this out loud because you'll have these slides and you can reference this. But in short, we have to tell them what it is. What's the offer? Make sure that it's connected to the impact and the mission of the organization. We need to help them understand the benefit that they will receive from reading and engaging with the offer. And then ultimately, we have to give a very clear call to action. This might sound very familiar. This is a very similar format and template to how we might structure a donation appeal, except in this case, we're not asking them to give, we're asking them to engage with an offer. That call to action, again, we don't want to ask people to learn more. We don't want to also throw in a PS to say, would you give? We just want cultivation to be cultivation. We want them to do one thing at a time. We want to make it clear what the next step is, which is to go get the offer. So there's the email in a nutshell. I want to show you this quick real life example and highlight a few things just so it kind of gets your wheels turning on your kind of creative processes. You're going to put together this email for yourself. So here at the top, this is an email from Food for the Hungry. They're offering, obviously, an ebook. And right in the headline, it says, "One at a time, your free gift from Food for the Hungry." So they are emphasizing right off the bat that this is not something you have to buy. This is not a book that you're going to purchase. This is a gift from us to you. So I would encourage you to do the same, which is to emphasize that this is a free resource. There's not going to be some bait and switch in this process. That's something we have to watch out for when we start to introduce the donation page, so that's something to be careful of. We want to very clearly make sure that people know that this is a free thing. It's a gift to you. As they move down the email, I wanted to highlight this too. They're really showing with these 5 bullet points the connection from the resource to the actual mission of the organization. It says, I know that these stories are going to resonate with you. They show the passion that we have for our work as we help people see that they have a future. We bring about long-term transformation in the neediest communities. We lift people out of poverty, et cetera, et cetera. So they're using these bullet points to make very clear this isn't just some random book. This isn't some random resource. It's not some random giveaway. We've intentionally curated this for you because it's going to help you see the impact that you're making on this important cause when you give. So we want to make sure that connection is abundantly clear to the mission. I want to pause because I see a question from Caitlin. And I see Melanie has the same problem. The main thing we've struggled with in getting this step, the Welcome Series, is that we don't know what to do for the offer itself. We're a small startup nonprofit. We don't have a ton of resources. What should we do? Well, there are a lot of things you can actually do. And we won't have time today to go unpack how to go create this offer from scratch. There is an entire session in our online donor acquisition course that unpacks the whole process. There has not been I'll say, Caitlin and Melanie, I've had this question a lot of times in my years of teaching this type of training. And there is not an organization I have talked to that hasn't had something that they're able to work with to go create some form of content offer. It requires a little bit of creativity sometimes, but I'll show you a couple things here. Number one, you don't just have to use ebooks. There's a bunch of different things you can use for a content offer. It could be an ebook. It could be a 5-6 question quiz that's kind of challenging someone's thinking about the cause. Maybe it's something creative and kind of fun related to the mission. It could be a petition, like if you do work related to advocacy or anything related to policy or things like that. Petitions can be a really effective way to engage someone with an offer. We're going to talk about a survey email here in a moment. A survey can be a form of a content offer as well. Video series, if you have any kind of video content, whether it's training, it's educational, you can take that video content and go package it up in sort of an email drip series, and that can be an offer. You can even go further and create, and we've built a lot of programs on this, actually creating online courses where it's like in-depth video content that walks through a particular topic related to the cause, related to the organization. Obviously, that's probably the most work to create, is a full online course. But there's all these different options that you have in terms of content that you can turn into an offer. What I often suggest for people is to go take a hard look at your website, because usually there's going to be some form of content on there that you can repackage and repurpose into an ebook. This is usually the quickest offer that you can get off the ground. If you write blogs, if you have any kind of blogging about the impact of your programs or different things like that, or kind of the state of the cause, state of the mission, state of the impact, if you have video content that you create, do you have a podcast or any other sorts of like audio recordings that you could go transcribe the audio from the video or podcast, use that as copy or the framework for copy for an ebook? If you produce stories of impact, which I would imagine most of you do, especially for something like an annual report, that type of content can be repackaged. If you have news or articles related to your cause, all these different things can be just like little bits and pieces you can pull from to go create something of great value in a content offer. I'll give you one quick example here. This ebook from the organization called Heartlight Ministries, they're based in Texas. They basically went through some blogs that they had and some podcast episodes that they had. They pulled and scraped some content from both of those, and they put together this ebook. This is not a 50-page, 80-page, like in-depth guide to teens and dating. This is like a 10-page document that they put in a Word document, made it look nice, had a cover design for it. They went, I think, to Fiverr. If you haven't used Fiverr, fiverr.com. Kind of like Upwork, if you use that. They paid somebody $5 to go make a PDF design cover for this book, and they launched one of their more effective content offers from recycling content. So it doesn't have to be this like big over-the-top production. I would encourage you to not write anything new. You likely have something right now, either on your website or maybe in some like brochures and pamphlets and collateral you have like at the front desk of your office. That type of stuff is often like great material to work from to go create something like this type of an ebook. So again, hopefully that helps Melanie. Hopefully that helps Caitlin. Again, if you want to dive deeper in that acquisition course that we have and you have access to through all those next after courses, we spend a good amount of time walking through this process of how to identify some content that you have. How do you start to go create a headline? How do you create an outline for what the book is going to look like? Even some of the tools that you can use along the way to just speed up this process. So you can go create an offer like this in less than 24 hours. That's ultimately the goal. I told you we're going to spend a lot of time on this content offer email, and then we're going to speed up. So where I want to land is on some of the technical pieces here, because you might look at that instant donation page and be overwhelmed. Like, how on earth do I create that? So let's talk about the actual tools that you have to go make this happen. I believe we talked a little bit last month about this update to the embedded donation pages, embedded donation forms that you have through the Colorado Gives platform. If not, I'll remind you here. Towards the end of 2024, you were kind of locked into, you had one embedded donation form that you could use. But now there was a release pushed, I believe, early January, where you can embed as many donation forms as you want. I don't believe there's any limit on it at this point. But you can go create multiple embedded donation forms to embed on multiple pages. The reason that's critical is because I asked you to go take your embedded donation form and put it on a landing page for Colorado Gives Day and for year end. And so if you could only use one, you're kind of stuck, because that page should probably still exist somewhere. Now you can actually go create as many custom pages as you want. Go create a new embedded form. You can go embed that form on a dedicated landing page on your website, where you can include all the copy that you need to explain your content offer, and talk about the reasons you should give on that instant donation page, customize it as much as you need to. So that's a great little update. You'll find everything in the same location. If you go under fundraising tools in the platform and you go to embeds, you'll have these various options for the things that you can embed, either that donate button, the little mini giving widget, or the full donation form. So I'd encourage you to go take that full donation form and use that on your landing page to create your instant donation page. All the same stuff then applies. You can go customize your form as much as you need to, craft the thank you message based on what we talked about last month in our kind of thank you and welcome messaging. Then you go copy the code and you go embed it on your site, whether you're using Square, you're using Wix, you're using WordPress, you're using something totally custom. You can go grab that code, copy and paste it, and you should be good to go. And you'll end up with a page that looks something like this, where you can customize all the content that's around it, and then you can embed that Colorado Gives donation form. Okay, I see Joel's pumped about creating multiple embedded pages. I'm glad because it's gonna that unlocks so much opportunity, and not just here in the New Donor Welcome series, but opportunity for using these content offers for acquisition, for creating more customized campaigns, all sorts of things. So anyway, lots of good things unlocked just through that one little feature upgrade. So that's huge. Okay, let's keep moving and let's go to the survey. I do see a question from Rachel asking, is this email going to existing contacts or as a cold email to potential donors? Rachel, this is just part of the New Donor Welcome series. So if someone has just given for the first time, we've sent them that thank you. We sent them the welcome email. The next email is that content offer email. So these are people who have already given. And it's just creating that pathway, starting with cultivation, but leading them down a path where they might actually choose to give that second gift. Which puts them squarely on the path to retaining into year 2, if you can win that second gift within their first year. So let's talk about the survey. Again, a survey can function as a form of content offer. But in this case, our goal is less around getting a gift at the end of the survey, but it's more around how do we make sure that these people feel really valued and feel really known. We have some very similar high-level goals where we're still trying to help these people have competency. The questions that we're going to ask is going to help kind of prompt some questions in their own mind and maybe fill in some gaps and some details about what your organization actually does, the impact that their gift can make. Again, it's getting that level of buy-in and commitment as well. As they're filling out a survey to tell you more about why they gave, what matters to them. And by you leaning into them, they're leaning into you, and you're getting that level of commitment. So a quick checklist for you. Again, we won't spend too much time here. It's a pretty straightforward email, but a quick checklist for you. We want to communicate the importance of the new donor in the work that's happening, in the actual like on the ground, hands-on work, the impact that's being made through their giving. We want to tell them that their voice matters. We want them to know that you're placing such an incredible value on the feedback and the input that they're going to give you, that you want to know them, that you want to hear from them, that their opinion and their voice matters in terms of shaping and influencing where their dollars go and where you go as an organization. We want to help set some expectations for them so that you don't just say, hey, will you take this survey? And they think, is it 50 questions? Is it 2 questions? I have no real context. We want to tell them what they can expect when they click the link to go actually take the survey. I would encourage you to keep it tighter rather than longer, at least to start. Probably 10 questions, might take 3 to 4 minutes, but set that expectation in your copy. It would be an interesting test for you to see what's kind of the difference if you have kind of a shorter, tighter 5 to 10 question survey versus like a really in-depth 50 question survey. That could be a really interesting experiment to run to see like longer term, if you can run a longer, deeper survey, maybe that actually leads to greater engagement and greater retention over time. It'd be an interesting experiment, but I would encourage you to start with kind of this tighter, probably 10 question survey. And then again, very clear call to action, straight to the point, take the survey. Don't throw a PS in there to ask them to make an additional gift. Don't say learn more about the survey, ask them to go take the survey and make that a clear call to action. A couple things to highlight in this quick little example. You can see this is not a complicated email. You don't have to write thousands upon thousands of words. It can be pretty simple and to the point. You can test a longer email for sure. And we've tested into those in multiple occasions, but it doesn't have to be overly complicated. We definitely want to state how much we value their input. They have this quick little sentence here. Since you're such a dedicated supporter, I'd love to hear what you think. I would encourage you to embellish on that a little bit more than just one sentence, but it's a starting point. They're calling out how much they value it. Spend a little bit more time maybe than that talking about the value of their input and what it means to you personally and what it means to the organization. They have a very clear call to action right there. Take our quick survey. Down below it in this kind of secondary call to action, they set a little bit of context. They're saying, please take our 6-question survey. So again, they know it's not 50 questions. They know it's a little bit tighter, something they can probably accomplish in the next 5 minutes. Setting those expectations is a really good thing because it might actually lead to more people saying, yes, I'll do this because I know exactly what to expect on the other end. Now, I said this doesn't have to be overly complicated. I know when we think about surveys, I think the tendency that we often have is to think that this has to be a lot of questions. We have to have like a pretty rigorous approach to how we write the questions, all that sort of stuff. I'd encourage you to be just keep it short, keep it to the point, keep it simple, and to not overthink it, particularly on the tools side. There's a bunch of different tools you can use. SurveyMonkey is usually the primary tool that most people think of when they think of surveys. It can be kind of expensive if you don't already have it. I'm not encouraging you to go sign up for SurveyMonkey and pay a bunch of money for it if it's not already a tool that you're using. It's a great tool if you have it, but there's a bunch of other tools that you can use to simply run a very simple survey. Honestly, any web form tool that you have, whether it's one you see on the screen or something else, can work. It could even be a Google form at the end of the day. You might want a little bit more sophistication in terms of your tracking of who's filling it out and all that sort of stuff. But I would encourage you to start simple and don't overcomplicate it. But any of these tools you see on the screen are great tools to use. I particularly like this paper form tool. Doesn't break the bank in terms of the cost of web forms. You can do a ton of stuff with it. You might already be using Gravity Forms if you're using WordPress. Any of these will do. Any web form tool that you have, you can make work for a simple survey. A quick little experiment for you that I think is just interesting as we think about our copy for this email in particular, but really for the whole series. Version A and version B are very similar emails, but the focus is a little bit different in each one. You can see the highlighted words. Version A, we've highlighted every single instance where the organization is talking about themselves in the copy. Version B, we're highlighting every time they're talking about you, the donor, in the language. You can see as we scroll down, there's a stark contrast between these two emails. Version A is pretty much all about the organization. Hey, to apply it to the survey email, it'd be something like saying, hey, we put this great survey together so we can learn more about how we can improve our services to go solve this cause that we think is so valuable to us. We want to flip that language and make it very much focused on the donor. Like, your voice matters. Would you take a few moments to share your thoughts with us about why this cause is important to you? Because we'd like to get a better understanding of your mindset and what you value so that we can make sure that we have your priorities in mind as we go try to solve this problem together. It's a small change in language, but the difference it can make is really, really dramatic. You can see in this experiment, flipping that language, although this is a donation appeal, it's not about a survey, flipping that language led to an 86% increase in people actually clicking through to the next step. So consider that in all of these emails. Even though we're welcoming people into kind of our community, we can still frame the language around you, the donor, whether it's a survey, content offer, or an appeal. Let's talk about the story of impact emails. Hang with me here for a few minutes, and then we'll have a little bit of time. We'll have a little activity time to kind of get started on thinking through this framework together. So the impact, the story email, again, pretty straightforward and to the point. We want to go cultivate people by sending some form of like testimonial, showcasing the real on the ground work that's happening when someone gives. The ultimate goal of this email is to really increase what we call it satisfaction. If you think about customer satisfaction and any other kind of like e-commerce sale, many organizations, many companies are going to reach out to you after you buy some sort of product and make sure that a couple of days later you got it after it actually arrived, that everything looked good, that it functions properly, that it's actually doing what you expected it to do. They emphasize customer satisfaction because that's key to retention. That's key to you buying something else from that company down the road. We want to do the same thing here, but obviously with a slightly different context. So we want to make sure that the donor is fully satisfied, knowing that they're still confident, a week, 2 weeks later after their gift, that their donation was worth it and is going to something really meaningful. And one of the most powerful ways that we can do that is by using story and by using narrative. I would encourage you when you send this email to send it from someone who is close to the story that you're telling. It might be whoever kind of runs your day-to-day programs. It might be someone who just kind of captured the story from someone kind of on the ground related to the programs that you're implementing. Send it obviously from a human being, but send it from the person who's kind of closest and best equipped to tell the story. I'll show you a quick checklist and then we'll look at this example email very briefly. We want to restate at the beginning of this email the problem that your organization exists to solve. We're kind of throwing back to the value proposition here. reminding them of why they gave in the first place. What's so critical and at stake that their donation was needed? What's the problem at hand? We want to restate how critical their gift is in solving this problem. Again, we're reminding people at every single stage of this series that what they did, a week ago, 2 weeks ago when they gave, that was a really good thing. And we still think it's awesome 2 weeks later. We still think it's awesome 30 days later. So we want to remind them how crucial that was. And then we're going to share a story that illustrates the problem being solved, that shows the donor how their gift is being used. And it may not be one-to-one. It might not be that you made this gift and now we've already used the money to do X, Y, and Z, but you're illustrating an example of where their gift is going. You can also approach this in a variety of ways. You can write the whole story in the email. You can write half the story and include a link to go jump to a page on your website to go read the full thing. You could go record a video if you have any kind of video testimony. You could go start to explain the story, ask them to go watch the video, and they jump to your site to go watch the full story. There's a bunch of ways you can approach it, but we do not want to ask for money in this email. Whatever you do, whatever your call to action is, whether you're sending to a landing page or to a place to watch a video, do not ask them for money. Let cultivation be cultivation. Let it stand on its own. Otherwise, we risk undercutting the cultivation entirely because it starts to train people that, well, whenever you reach out, you're really just asking for money. We don't want that. We want to build a real relationship and cultivate and steward these donors incredibly well. Here's a couple highlights from this email from Hope Mission. Here at the top, they kind of start into the story. They're sharing an impact story. It's connected to the impact that the donation is going to make. You can see some of the copy here. Incredible stories from the men, women, and children that are impacted by donors like you. Your generosity will make a tremendous difference in the life of someone like Paul. They're not saying your gift went directly into Paul's pocket. They're saying your gift can make a difference in the life of someone like Paul. So let me tell you that story. Then they go on to explain this story of Paul and how he was homeless and living on the streets in Edmonton. And then they kind of unpack his story and how his life turned around through the work of this organization, but ultimately through the giving of donors like you. As we scroll down, you see a few more things here. I want to call out this PS. They have a PS, but it's not asking for a gift. It is asking you to reply and tell a little bit more information about what inspired your donation. Why did you choose to give? Again, every stage along this welcome series should be leaning into cultivation and leaning into the relationship. Here's a quick little example. Again, we've been through some optimization training, but just as a reminder, oftentimes what we see be the most effective emails, whether it's a donation appeal or it's just trying to get someone to engage with a story and click through to watch a video, click through to the website. The more human the design, oftentimes the better results that we see. In this case, basically removing the logo at the top, removing the big button, using a little bit more human and authentic language led to a 146% increase in conversion. So consider that in all these emails. How do we make this sound and feel like it's authentically from a human being? All right, a couple more, and then we'll have a little activity for you. The monthly ask. So far, every single email that we have sent is exclusively focused on cultivation. Now at email number 6, the monthly ask email is the first time that we're actually intentionally trying to move someone towards giving again. And specifically, we're trying to get them to become a sustainer and give on a monthly basis, not just give another one-time gift, but actually double down now that they've really, truly understood the impact of their gift and they have a clear understanding of the cause and the problem and all that sort of stuff. Now we're asking them to actually double down on their commitment and choose to give on a monthly basis. We won't read through all the copy on this email. You'll see that it's a pretty long form email, pretty text heavy. They're providing a lot of information, but the goals here, we're still trying to foster the sense of connectedness to a community of people that are giving on an ongoing basis now at this point to go make a significant impact on the problem at hand. That's still ultimately our goal in all this kind of welcome communication. And now we're trying to get them to that next level of commitment where they're actually choosing to give on an ongoing basis. Checklist for this email. Again, I won't read everything verbatim for you. You'll have access to all these slides and you can use this kind of as a guide, but we do want to thank them for the previous giving. We still want to celebrate that. We want to remind them of how their gift has helped. Again, we're doing that at every single stage here. We don't want to forget about that. The main thing that I want you to know about this email is if you go write an email asking someone to give monthly and you don't give them any unique reasons why that's creates additional impact than just giving once, you're never going to get them to give monthly. At the end of the day, what we have to do when we ask someone to give monthly is we have to fully articulate kind of a unique spin on the value proposition. Or when we did some value proposition training early on, we said that core question that we have to answer is why should I give to you rather than to some other organization or even give at all? In this case, what we have to say and what we have to answer is why should I give a monthly gift to you rather than a one-time gift or even give at all? So we have to lean into differentiation and help them understand the unique impact if I choose to give to you on a monthly basis. You might have some other incentives that go along with that. There's a lot of industry kind of thought leaders who would suggest that you need to have a very big branded monthly giving program with really built out kind of giving products, if you will, like all these large incentives. What we found is that there's a lot of organizations that are rapidly growing their monthly giving without all of the bells and whistles of big incentives and all that sort of stuff. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to the mission and clearly articulating the value proposition of giving on a monthly basis. Incentives can help get people over the line, but they're not ultimately the reason that someone gives in the first place. So focus this email on that unique value proposition around why should I give monthly rather than just once or even give at all. A couple things to highlight in this email. At the very top here, they're recognizing, hey, your contribution that you already gave helped make a real difference in our fight. This comes from Canadian Taxpayers Federation. We've talked about them a few times before, do a lot of tax policy type of work in Canada. But they're reminding people that you already gave, and that was a really good thing that you did. It's making a real difference. We've shown you that over the past 5 emails. And then you start to move down all this green text here. They're showing this donor that there is additional need. And it's not just additional need that can be solved with just like one more gift. It's an ongoing fight. In this case, they're always creating content. They're always doing work around tax policy. The landscape is changing all the time, as you can imagine, and anything related to government and politics and policy, all that sort of stuff. So they're talking about it's a 365-day-a-year job. And your contribution, lets us be the first line of defense in this case, as they're talking about tax policy. You can apply the same kind of thinking and framework to your own organization. There is ongoing work that's needed every single day, and just a one-time gift doesn't cover all the needs. So we can start to articulate that. There's a very unique way that you can impact this cause if you give on a recurring basis. You get a little bit further down, they have a very clear call to action, and they also have a very specific goal. They say, we're looking for 10 Canadians to step up to join their recurring giving program. Would you consider making a recurring monthly donation? They offer a very specific gift amount. They said even $5 a month helps. And then down below, would you consider being one of the 10 Canadians we are looking to be a monthly donor? There's a lot more we can unpack around recurring giving. We actually just released a brand new course. So if you're signed up for our courses, there's a brand new course on recurring giving acquisition. You can go explore that dives even deeper here. But this is what we're trying to accomplish in this email, articulating that unique impact. And I'll show you just one quick experiment that I think illustrates this idea really, really well. Version A and version B of this email, they're both asking people to become a monthly donor. But when you really dive into the email, there's nothing really unique in the main value proposition around why you should give monthly rather than just one time. It's kind of the core same value proposition you might put on the main donation page. But when you get down to the bottom, they give some very unique, in this case, incentives as to why you should become one of their monthly giving partners. So you're going to get a copy. A DTS is a seminary. So they're going to give you a copy of their Bible knowledge commentary. You're going to get a subscription to their magazine. You're going to get early access to new courses. They built their program on content offers like free online courses. You're going to get early access to those and then get on this list for semi-annual update emails. So these don't have to be complicated incentives, but just having a few incentives like this, some unique reasons why you should give monthly, led to a 123% increase in more people signing up to be a monthly donor. So we have to think about this email in the sense of, why should I give to you on a monthly basis rather than just give another one-time gift? I'll pause for a moment and we'll chat about the reply back email before we kind of wrap up this section, and then we'll have a little activity. I want to see some of the comments coming in. I see that Katie's saying most of our donors are also our beneficiaries who are already participating in professional development classes, already getting frequent emails. Would you use the same sequence of emails? Would you change anything? I have a slide just to talk about that. I don't, without getting all the way into kind of your context, I don't know exactly how, like what to recommend for you specifically, but that's a great example of a way we might want to tweak this series, or maybe suppress some people so they're not totally flooded in their inbox after they give. But those are some nuanced things that you can think through of, like, okay, this segment of potential new donors is already going to be receiving something every 3 days because they're already involved in this program over here. Maybe you suppress them from some of those emails while you onboard them properly. Maybe you slim down the amount of emails they're going to get in this new donor onboarding series to only 4 or 5 instead of the 8. There's a lot of ways you can be creative there, but that would be a great example of a way you might want to customize this and tweak this for a specific segment or a specific audience. Okay, the reply back email. You know this one well. We use this email, I think, a couple of times in our Colorado Gives prep and in our year-end season prep. So this should be one that I believe you know well at this point. We just want to hear from people. We want to build trust in a very authentic and personal way. Again, yes, that customer satisfaction, making sure that they're good to go, they trust that their gift is going to the right place and making good impact. One of the best ways we can do that is by trying to build trust with a real human being. I love this email because it's so simple and so potentially powerful. There's a checklist for you here. We want to use personal tone. You want it styled like a Gmail or an Outlook email. You want to ask some sort of question that prompts a reply. We want to specifically ask them to hit the reply button. And then we want to be prepared to actually have a conversation. So that might be scary to some, but you can start small and start to work up to this. We don't want to ask for anything else in this email. We don't want to ask for a gift. We're just asking them to hit the reply button and answer a question so we can start to build a relationship. Here's a quick example. You can see that the design of this email looks like an authentic email from this person named Matt. This might actually be an authentic email from Matt. I don't really know, but I'm inclined to say it is because of how it looks. And your donors will feel the same way if you send them an email that looks like this, even if it came out of MailChimp or it came out of HubSpot or whichever tool that you use. They're asking for a reply. They're saying, we value you, your story and your voice matters to us. Feel free to share why you support our organization and what inspires you. And they're kind of their brand language. What inspires you to love anyway? Ask for a reply. It could be something as simple as just to share more about why you gave. I've seen often for, kind of faith-based organizations, many of those organizations will ask for like a prayer request and that sort of thing. So you can be creative on what's a relevant question that you can ask. But at the end of the day, it's got to be human. It's got to be authentic. And we want to start to have a real back and forth conversation and relationship. And then again, there's no other call to action. We're not asking them to give. We're not asking them to go click a link and take a survey. We just want them to respond in the inbox. Finally is the transition email. Once we get to the very end of the series, we need to set some expectations for what's going to come next. We're still trying to build trust. We're trying to set good expectations for the communication that they can expect moving forward. We want to thank them for that gift. Don't forget to do that. We're still onboarding. We want to tell them what they can expect. Are they going to hear from you every day, every week, every month? What kinds of communication are they going to get? Emphasize that they can kind of tweak their preferences whenever they need to, unsubscribe at any time. And then again, you always want to allow for replies in any of this communication. So it's a two-way street. It's not just you blasting information, but you have an ongoing connection. Quick little example here of this transition email. They're setting some expectations for future communication. I've asked my team to make sure that you're kept up to date on how we're defending your values in their case as an organization. So set some expectations. You might get a little bit more specific to say, the frequency of communication, that sort of thing. Examples maybe of the types of content that you're going to be sharing. But again, make sure it's an open door for ongoing communication. As always, please let me know if you have any questions. So keep that open door on the relationship and on the communication. You may be wondering when to send all of these emails. That probably is the biggest question on many of your minds. Do we blast all these in a week? Is this a 90-day thing? I think I said earlier, we try to send these all in a 30-day window. You might vary some of the times between them, but typically it's going to be 3 to 4 days between, maybe with some variance there. If you had a new donor come in on March 3rd, I just put together kind of like a sample calendar for you. Ultimately, this is supposed to be automated. So you're going to set up your workflow to say, like, send this email after 1 day, send this email after 4 days, send this email after 12 days. But if somebody came in, they give you a gift as a brand new donor on March 3rd, this is an example of what their communication calendar might look like. You want to send that thank you email on the day of. Don't wait. It should come out within 15 minutes. Make sure that, and probably sooner than that, but it should come right away. I would send the welcome email within 24 to 48 hours, probably the next day. So in this case, that would be on March 4th. Then you might give them a little breathing room for a couple of days. Send that content offer email within that first week. And then basically every email from there on is spaced about 3 to 4 days apart, trying to get all this communication within a 30-day window. Your frequency might change after that for your ongoing communication, but we looked at some data last month where we saw that your best chance of engaging with your new donor, your best chance of getting off on a good foot in your relationship is to communicate right away. Because the longer you wait, the less chance and the less likelihood you have of actually having their attention. So we want to put our best foot forward as soon as we possibly can to build a good relationship. And if you drag this out to more of a 90-day window, you're just losing engagement and you're losing the chance to build a quality relationship with this person who has just given you their money. So we want to make sure that we steward that as best as we possibly can. All right. I'm going to take a breather from talking for a moment, and I want to give you a chance to start to think through some of this stuff on your own. We have put together, and some of you may have seen this if you've actually been through this new Donor Welcome Series course already. I know a few of you have, but we've put together this worksheet for you that walks through how to start to think about all the content for all these various emails. So I want you to go ahead and scan this QR code. I can also grab the link and drop it in the Zoom chat if that's helpful as well. I want you to
put it in there.
Thank you. Jordan is on top of it.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you can go click that link that's in the chat that Jordan just shared, where you can open up this document. You can go create a copy of it to copy it into your Google Drive. And then you can start to fill this out. And what I want us to do is take about 10 minutes to just get started. This will ultimately be your homework, but I want to give you a chance to kind of get your hands on and start to fill some of this out and think through some of these questions. Just as a quick overview, what you're going to see in this worksheet. These are key questions to help you think through all the details you need for your copy. As you scroll down, there is a messaging timeline that walks through all these various emails that we've just covered, what the focus of them is. You can start to pencil in, what your specific times are going to be, when these are going to come out, who the sender is going to be. You can make some notes in there if you need to on like kind of the other copy nuances you might want to keep track of. And then ultimately, this timeline is going to help you plan exactly which emails you're going to send and at what times. So go grab this worksheet, spend the next, we won't do 10 minutes, let's do 5 minutes. So let's go to the top of the hour here at 10 o'clock Mountain Time here. We'll get to work on this, and then we'll kind of start back up and talk about some of the more technical things that you'll need to keep in mind here in about 5 minutes. And if you got any questions in the meantime, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll start to go look back through that and see if there's anything I'm missing.
Hey, Nathan, I actually have a question. I'm just wondering if when you show the timeline for this series of emails, do people ever react like, oh my gosh, we've never sent that many emails to donors? Or, I feel like a lot of marketing teams and just, people in nonprofit world don't want to over communicate. So I guess what is the thinking behind having it kind of rapid fire throughout the next, couple weeks?
Well, to answer your first question, all the time, people react that way all the time. Usually this type of approach is very different than most any organization has put into practice so far, in their kind of growth trajectory. So usually this does feel like a lot of emails. A couple things to keep in mind. We're not keeping this frequency forever.
That's true.
A temporary window. This is not your entire email list or your entire donor file. This is just for new donors. So it's not like we're sending a batch email to 30,000 people every 3 days for the next 30 days. It's designed to be one-to-one communication. When you think about your open rates, if the average open rate is 20 to 25%, you can expect that the average new donor is only going to see, if you send 8 emails, they're only going to see 2 of them, 3 of them at best. So, and if you compensate for, okay, it's welcome communication, normally open rates are a little bit higher, maybe they see half of them. So we're not expecting that every donor is going to see every single thing. That's why we're actually sending a good amount of communication in that time frame, is to make sure a few things stick. Also, at any point, there should be an opportunity for someone to unsubscribe. As we talked about with the year-end campaign and any high urgency campaign, we talked about having kind of an opt-out of the campaign link instead of just a global unsubscribe. You can have that for the welcome series too. So instead of just auto opting out of every communication moving forward, you can give them an option to say, basically just opt out of this welcome communication. They'll just start to get the steady drip of cultivation over time. So there's ways you can kind of mitigate against that. The last thing, though, that I would encourage everyone to consider is that, like, what's the ultimate metric that we're optimizing for? The ultimate metric that we're optimizing for is probably not keeping our unsubscribe rate down. The ultimate metric that we're trying to optimize for is retention in this series. And I would rather have more people unsubscribe if it means that more of the right people are going to retain over time. So yes, you got to watch the unsubscribes, all that sort of stuff. There's lots of little tactics you can implement to try to mitigate against that. But at the end of the day, I would encourage all of us to not be so fixated on the unsubscribes and be more focused on what really matters, which is how do we onboard these people in a very meaningful way where we're going to have their attention and start to build a real relationship. Okay, that said, you can keep working. Take a few more minutes, 2 or 3 more minutes here. Keep working on this worksheet. If you have any problems getting access to the worksheet, let me know that too, because I want to make sure that you have it before we part ways today.
And thank you for that answer. Sorry, I wasn't off mute. That was awesome.
Thank you for asking it. It's a good question. I do want to call out this question that Melanie asked and Jordan responded to in the chat, but if you didn't see it, the question was basically, a receipt and a thank you comes out from Colorado Gives already. Do I really need these other first 2 emails? Her answer, and I would echo the same thing, is you do need these other emails to come directly from you. The confirmation and all that stuff coming from Colorado Gives is essential to go deliver the receipt and all that sort of stuff. I would still plan to send at minimum the welcome email, but likely both that thank you and that welcome that feel a bit more personal and come like really directly from you, rather than being rather than risking all the thank you messaging getting lost in all the other kind of confirmation communication. And if you haven't seen, my good friend Artie is joining us today. He's one of our account leads at Next After, so he's coming into the chat with lots of good insights and all that here today too. All right, let's take it. It is 10 o'clock. Why don't we take the next 30 seconds, sort of wrap up where you're at, finish that sentence you were writing, finish that note you were jotting down, and then we're going to talk about kind of the data and technology for a little bit. I know that can be for some people, that's a heavy topic. You don't want to talk about data. You don't want to talk about analytics, all that sort of stuff. We'll keep it tight. We'll keep it brief. I've got a little assessment for you that you can work on here in a little bit as well. But I want to at least get you thinking about what you're going to need to put in place to actually go execute on this welcome series. You might be in a great spot already. You might have everything covered. You just need to go set up the emails. you might find that you actually need a new email platform. That might be the reality for some of you. So I want to get you thinking about that so you can start those conversations. Let's talk about email platforms. At the end of the day, you have to have a solid email platform in order to execute this. There is some communication, obviously, that can come out of Colorado Gives, and that's fantastic. But as we've talked about, there's also integration tools built into the platform for a reason, because you can't get one tool to do every job. We're going to have to go push some data out to a MailChimp or a HubSpot or another email platform to go deliver this communication in the most effective way possible. So let's talk about some minimum requirements. I will say, we only ever recommend 2 email platforms. And the difference in why you should choose one or the other is usually just budget. That's like, we would want every single organization to be on HubSpot, but that's not the reality for everybody because it's an expensive platform. So the fallback is MailChimp. You have to be at least on the standard or premium plan for MailChimp. For HubSpot, you need to be on a professional or a higher plan in order to really fully execute on everything we've talked about. But there's a lot of other platforms out there. You may not need to move to one of these 2. Some things to think about, though. You have to be able to send what we would call trigger-based automations. So what that means is there's a trigger or an event that happens, and you can say, hey, when this thing happens, go send this email or send this series of emails. So in our case, when someone gives, then go start this whole series of communication. We need the ability to go personalize these emails based on the contact record. So inside of your contact record in HubSpot or MailChimp or whatever platform, you want to be able to go pull obviously their name. So you can go personalize it and say, hey, RD, hey, Jordan, hey, whatever their first name is, and talk to them like a human being. You might also want to do some more complicated things where you're referencing their original gift amount or the time frame from when they gave to the date that it is now. Lots of different things you could pull from the contact record, but at a minimum, we need to be able to personalize these emails to their name. Third, we need this platform to be able to receive new donor data from your CRM, or in this case, from coloradogives.org. That could be through a native integration. That could be through a third-party integration. Colorado Gives has a native integration with MailChimp, and you can use a Zapier, which would be a third-party integration, to go push the data out to any of the other platforms that you need. And then finally, ideally, there would be no limit on the number of emails that you can put into like an automation series or workflow. In our case, if your platform limits you to 4 or 5, you might be able to get away with that, but ideally there would be no limit on the amount of like emails you can send, actions you can take in an automation. So those are some things to think about as you think about your own platform. If none of this makes any sense to you, you might need to bring somebody else in on your team who has a bit more understanding of the platform side and just kind of give them these slides and have this conversation together with someone that has a little bit more of the technical expertise. On the data side, that's the platform side. On the data side, when we think about creating an automation, creating an automated welcome series, an automated workflow, if you will, there's really 4 key ingredients to any type of automation. There's a trigger, which is the event that happens that kind of kicks the whole thing off, that basically says, hey, enroll someone or activate someone in this workflow, in this automation, if they have done X, Y, or Z. You have suppressions, which is kind of the opposite, to say, okay, this person, we put them in the workflow, but because they're this type of donor or they're on this type of list or because they have attended this event, we don't want them to get any of this. We're going to suppress them. So you've got triggers, you've got suppressions, you've got actions, which is actually what's going to happen to these people. Okay, we just said we want to put all these new donors in workflow. What are we going to do? We're going to send them an email. We're going to update the record. We're going to do all these different actions in a workflow. And then finally, you have things like delays, which is just, okay, this email gets sent. Let's wait 5 days, and then we'll insert another action, which is sending the next email. So for you, in this case, as you're thinking about, what's sort of the trigger criteria to get the workflow going, a typical new donor welcome series is going to be sent to an online donor, a new online donor, starting after you pick a launch date for your series, and then you're going to say basically, if the first gift date of this donor comes after kind of the launch date, then they're going to be enrolled in this series. So you're going to need to have the first gift date of the new donor in your email platform. That's like one critical piece of data. It's probably the most critical piece of data that you're going to need in order to kick off this workflow. You might also, if you can, bring in like the type of donor. So if a donor comes in, they get uploaded to your CRM because they wrote in a gift via check, put it in the mail, you might want to treat them a little bit differently. Maybe you have a custom flow for them. Maybe you don't want them to get these emails. Maybe you want them to get a different communication series. You may want to tag those differently so that you can communicate with them accordingly. So that's something to think about. On the suppression side, there's a lot of different donor audiences that you may want to consider either suppressing or just treating differently. Again, those offline donors would be one of them. You might also think about your mid-level and your major donors. You probably don't want to send them the exact same series if they just gave like a $10,000 gift. You might want to treat them a little bit different. I'm not saying pull them out of the communication. I'm very much in the camp of keep those people engaged. And oftentimes, even though we have the best intentions of having making phone calls and that sort of stuff to these major donors, sometimes they actually get left in the lurch because they fall maybe to the bottom of somebody's call list and they just never quite get caught up with them. So I wouldn't remove them entirely, but be careful with the communication to them. Board members, if you're importing new contacts all the time, you may want to have some suppressions for that. Sometimes you'll have just kind of a universal like do not contact flag in your CRM or in your email database. That might be a suppression list that you pull into this as well. On the action side, again, what you should think about here is kind of the personalization data that you need. We want to personalize these emails by first name. You likely may want to reference their gift amount. So that might be something you need to pull in. And then you'll also want that gift date in here because that might change some of your communications over time as well. So there's a few things to think about as it relates to some of the data needs that you'll have as you set this up. And then finally, let's talk about audiences for just a moment. And again, we'll go quickly here. We won't spend too much time, but there's a few specific audience I want to make some recommendations on how you should treat them. Obviously, if someone comes in as a one-time donor, that's what we've designed this whole new donor welcome series for. But if they come in as a new donor who just gave you a recurring gift, we obviously want to change a couple things, particularly that email 6, that monthly. We don't want to ask them to give another monthly gift. You might ask them to give an additional one-time gift. We've been seeing a lot of interesting data as of late as to how much recurring donors also give one time. Like it's actually pretty incredible their likelihood to give an additional one-time gift compared to a one-time donor. In some cases, they're more likely to give you an additional one-time gift than a one-time donor is willing to give you an additional one-time gift. So you want to tweak that monthly upgrade email to be like a one-time donation ask. When it comes to mids and majors, what I would recommend that you do, granted, I don't know all your context and all that sort of stuff, but just kind of at a high level, your main goal is to keep these people subscribed and to keep them engaged. So we don't really want to do anything that's going to cause them to hit that unsubscribe button, but we do want to keep them engaged in ongoing cultivation. So you might limit the amount of those content offers you send them. You might consider removing that instant donation page for them. Again, if they just gave you 10,000 bucks or some big gift, asking them to give an additional instant gift after downloading an ebook might not feel quite appropriate. So you might consider removing that. You might remove this additional donation ask that comes obviously in the first couple of weeks. So a few tweaks that you should make. But again, our goal here is keep them subscribed, keep them engaged, because that's the best thing that we can do to make sure that they are going to give again, is to continue that kind of open door relationship. Some other audiences to think through. If you host events, what do you want to do with people that go to an event and attend and maybe ultimately give? Do you want to treat them a little bit differently? Should their communication look different? Volunteers to your organization, they might find their way towards giving as well, and might you want to communicate with them in a unique way? Think about e-commerce purchasers. If you're selling any kind of product on your website and someone comes in that way, one of the potential trip ups here is those people might accidentally get pushed into a new donor workflow, which isn't what we want. We might want to treat them differently. So just be cautious of those things. Peer-to-peer campaign donors, they might need a little bit different messaging. If they aren't that connected to the cause, they just gave because they gave through their friend's campaign. They might want to be treated a little bit different. And then especially people that are actually beneficiaries of your programs, they might be a unique audience to consider as well. We're gonna end there. I want to jump to an activity where I have a bunch of questions for you to think through, both on the platform side and the data side. I put 10 minutes on here. I want to make sure we just leave a little space for some Q&A as well. So let's say we'll take the next 5 minutes and start this, and then this can be something you just kind of have in your back pocket to help you think through, what am I going to need to tweak and change and work on as I actually go implement this. So you can go ahead and scan this QR code. I think I've got the link I can pull for you as well. Jordan, I don't think I sent you this one. So let me drop it in the chat. Call it data and tech assessment. I spelled tech wrong, but bear with me for typos. So you can go check out that assessment, go create a copy of it real quick. Take the next few minutes and start to work through some of these questions. As you do that, I know that there's some questions that have come in, so I'll take a look at those here as well. Again, let me know if you have any trouble getting access to that document, but this will help you answer some of those key things to think about your platforms and your data. And we'll take till about, we'll say 10:15 here to start to work through that. Caitlin's got a good question here. Again, if your head's down working, feel free to keep going, but I want to answer Caitlin's question. She says for events, oop, I just lost it. And Jordan's answering it too. Awesome, we're on the same page. But the question for events, that's where we get a lot of new subscribers to our newsletter, not necessarily new donors. Do you recommend a similar welcome series for new subscribers? Yes. The difference between a new email series and a new donor series isn't all that much. Except we're usually not asking those new email subscribers to upgrade to a monthly gift. Our primary goal with a new welcome series is to get someone to give that first gift. That is like primary goal number one. But you're going to use a lot of the same types of approaches. It's very cultivation heavy. We want to welcome these people into the same kind of community. It's not a donor community yet. They haven't given, but it's a shared group of people that they're now a part of that care about this cause. So I would use that thank you email. I'd use that welcome email, tailor it to what they've done, which is not giving, is they just signed up for a newsletter, but I would still use those emails in their kind of raw form. I would use content offers. Content offers are going to be your best friend for getting those people to give that first gift, because you're leading with cultivation. I can't remember if I've shared this experiment with you or not. I think I have, but we've seen in multiple instances, moving from a more traditional welcome series that says like, hey, thanks for signing up, sends a good little welcome email, maybe sends a survey, shares a couple pieces of content, moving from that approach to an approach that just uses content offers, we've seen lead to like 800, 900% increases in donations from these new emails coming on board. So rather than trying to cultivate really well and then send like a direct appeal, just using content offers to cultivate with a pathway towards giving is often one of the most effective ways to get those people to give that first gift. All right, let's take 2 more minutes as you kind of work through this database assessment. Again, if you got questions about it, drop them in the chat. Just want to give you a little time to get your hands on with that tool. All right, as you're wrapping that up. Obviously, if you need more time, you can feel free to take it, but I do want to keep us moving here. Feel free to keep working on it in the background if you'd like to. Or you can go, if you need to go grab someone else from your organization and have a chat about some of these questions, feel free to do that, after this meeting. I think that'd be a good use of time. I do want to address Heather's question here, as I just saw it come in. With the current political atmosphere, a lot of us are really struggling with losing funding sources as a result. Wondering if it's worth incorporating any language into these email series that talk about our need to rely more on individual donors. I think that's really interesting. It might be some messaging that you test, because I think you probably, how do I want to say, it's messaging you want to really get right. And so rather than kind of, just full send, changing all your communication to be focused on that, you might test your way into it. Maybe it's testing that inside of this kind of a new donor welcome series. Maybe it's sending a dedicated campaign where you're running a split test on your messaging. I'd probably work your way into it, but I do think it's really interesting messaging for this time, because you are right. Lots of people are losing funding, especially as it relates to grant funded organizations, that sort of thing, and anyone who relies on the federal government. Obviously, at the moment, I think many of us are feeling some of the pain there. So that might be a great way to start to pivot. If you've historically been very grant heavy in your funding, that might be a great way to start to pivot towards building up a larger base of individual donor funding. But I would test that messaging again to make sure that you really kind of have it dialed in right, and it's going to resonate with people. But it's certainly a worthwhile approach, Heather. I want to just open it up for a moment. If we have anyone who's willing to share, I want to give you the chance to share. As you've gone through starting on this kind of framework worksheet that we shared, or going through this database technology assessment, any surprises, any challenges that you are already aware of that we're going to face as we start to think about how do we implement this new donor series? Feel free to go, turn your mic on, turn your camera on. We'd love to hear from you. We'll take, 2 or 3 people if anyone's willing to share. Again, what challenges are you going to face as you start to go implement this series? Anyone want to share? And this is where I'll patiently sit through the awkward silence before we have a brave soul who's willing to share where their head's at.
Hey, this is Tara. I would just say that last Colorado Gives, we sent way more emails requesting donations than we had ever in the past. And yes, our unsubscribe rate for us was scary. When we saw those double digits come in, it was concerning, but we pushed forward bravely with Nathan's suggestions, and we did end up with a lot more donations than we had received in the past. And I would say we still feel that many emails are scary, but we're just going to keep going because, to Artie's point, we kind of felt like we lost some of the fat with some folks that got subscribed, probably hadn't opened an email in a year or two. And so we're trying to hold on to that maybe we're just losing some people that don't really align with our mission, and still scary, but yeah, we are pushing forward with quantity.
Tara, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think you probably put into words what a lot of people feel. And yeah, that is scary, especially when so often we're so focused on those kind of it's easy to focus on those lower level marketing metrics, I think, and get really, really fixated on them. But I'm so glad to hear that you saw increases in donors and all that sort of stuff. The other kind of magical thing here is that all those people that unsubscribe, if you want to win them back, you still have their email address. You can go drop them into a acquisition campaign through a Facebook audience or something like that as a means of winning them back, maybe through a different means, and maybe they give through that channel. So there's always things you can do with those emails, even if they've unsubscribed from you. And you can continually optimize your process to see how do we keep mitigating unsubscribes, even as we increase volume. So thank you so much, Tara, for sharing. I appreciate it. Joan dropped in the chat. She said she's in an open workspace, so she can't share aloud, but marketing has given me pushback about the number of emails in the series. I get it. And again, sounds like lots of people are in that boat. Send 4. Can you send 4 instead of 8? I mean, maybe go into the negotiation with 8, but plan to work it back to 4 or 5. Maybe you could squeeze out 6. if you're gonna go, oh, that's what you got approved. Amazing. And Joan, I believe you've been through the whole course. So we've got a recommendation in that course of like, if you can only do 4, do these couple ones, like focus on the relationship building aspects of it. So again, for anyone else who wants to dive deeper, we have a full course that goes even deeper on this whole topic that's fully available to you. Okay. Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Tara. I see Heather's asking Joan and Tara and probably others, testing of number of emails and frequency. If anyone has experience there, feel free to share. This kind of frequency of like every 3 to 4 days or so, this volume is something we've tested into over time as we've implemented this with many organizations. This is not the end all be all of new donor welcome series. There's a lot of ways you can tweak it, customize it, craft it. I would encourage you to test new approaches if you have inspiration about an idea. But this is a great framework to start from and then build on top of. Let's jump to our homework. I've shared what it is already, but you should have that new donor welcome series framework document. What I would ask for you to do over the next couple of weeks is to go work through that whole document, fill out answers to all the questions, decide which emails you're going to send, and maybe go put a check mark by each one's in the document. And then when you're done with that, go share your outline with us. You can go save it as a PDF or a separate document. You can go upload it to this form. We'll post all this in the homework channel in Slack. It's also in your Zoom chat right now. So that is our homework for the next month. Shouldn't be too burdensome, I don't think. I think that's pretty reasonable to accomplish. If you can carve off, a couple hours somewhere in the next couple of weeks, I think you can power through that and get that done. And you'll be on the road to implementing, again, what I think is probably the most important initiative as it relates to improving retention. Lots you can do after this, but this is like the foundation. An announcement for you. This is actually my last, it's actually my last day at Next After today. So this is my last time being with you for these trainings. This has been just an incredible 7 or 8 months that we've been able to kind of work through lots of things together. I have just been so privileged to be able to walk alongside of all of you through Colorado Gives Day, and sounds like a lot of organizations saw great results from that. And I'm just so encouraged from every one of you who have sent me questions, sent me notes, sent me your thoughts, shared your homework, shared the stuff you're working on. What a blessing it's been to me to just get to work with all of you and see you actively be working on how do we just continue to grow giving and generosity through some innovative means. So I'll introduce kind of Artie here in a moment. He's going to be taking my place for these trainings moving forward. Just so you know, I'm not like disappearing off the face of the earth. I still exist. I'm still staying here in Colorado, but I'm jumping to a company that we actually launched. I've mentioned them today, called Avid. We launched this company last summer. It's a data analytics platform that takes a lot of the thinking that we've kind of built at Next After and turns it into a technology platform. So you can see what's happening in your program, understand what's working, what's not, deploy campaigns to go kind of improve some of those key metrics. So that's where I'll be. So this probably isn't the last time you'll see me. I'm sure you'll see me around in various places. Feel free to shoot me an email at my new address, nathan@ai.com, or let's just connect on LinkedIn if we haven't already, so we can stay in touch there. Thank you for the kind words that some of you are dropping in the chat. I really appreciate that. I do want to introduce Artie. I mentioned him earlier. He's been already active in the chat, answering questions as we've gone through today. Artie is my good friend. As I kind of learned, as I had decided that I was going to move on to something new, I'm thinking about who is the best person to go take over the training side for you specifically. There's a lot of people we could choose from at Next After. I intentionally made sure that Artie had the time and capacity to do to take this one over, because he is an incredible speaker and teacher and trainer. I think you'll get to know him over the coming months and just see the passion he brings to his work and to fundraising. He, more so than me, spends more time with organizations every single day implementing programs. And he could spend hours and hours talking about the big results that clients of his have seen. So you will be in just really, really good hands with Artie. So I'm excited for you to get to meet him and excited for him to jump in with you all. So you'll get to know him over the course of the coming months. Artie, anything you want to say?
I just want to thank you, Nathan, and for those kind words of introduction, and thank you all for this opportunity. I am ecstatic about this chance to work with you all. Just to give you a little bit of background, before coming to Next After 3 years ago, I served 10 years at 3 different national nonprofit organizations. So when someone describes earlier in the chat, being on a small team with a small email list and trying to figure out what's too many emails, what's the right number, all of that, that's giving me so many flashbacks because I was that person wearing 17 different hats and a tiny team trying to grow our subscriber list. And I want you to know we were able to do it. And it was using these tactics that you've been learning together over the last few months, and we're going to continue learning together in the coming months. And I can't wait to hear your stories about optimization, because that's what this is about. This is not just another opportunity for you to hear someone saying their expert opinion on what you should do differently. No, this is an opportunity to really launch a journey that you're already on, where you're asking your own data, your own donors, your own subscribers, how they want to be treated. And then you're doing the courageous thing that so many marketers fail to do and will set you a world apart, which is to actually follow the direction that they give you. And that's what this is about. So I cannot wait to see what we're going to do together in the coming weeks and months. Looking forward to the next training that's scheduled that I'll get to walk you through, but so honored to be able to step into the shoes of Nathan. I know they're big shoes to fill, but looking forward to what we're going to do together.
Thanks, Artie. Again, super grateful for all of you and all your words of encouragement that you've dropped in the chat. I'm gonna tear up a little bit. So thank you so much for the past 8 months or so. It's been just a blast to get to work with all of you. And again, I hope to see you around either at an event or who knows, maybe we'll do an Avid demo at some point here in the near future. So thank you again to all of you. Thank you for all your thoughts and comments and stuff today too, and just staying engaged in all the work you're doing to grow giving and generosity. Jordan, anything to close today?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you both. And Nathan, it's just been such a joy, as you can see in the chat, to work with you and learn with you. And Artie, we're so excited to be working with you and really to get to understand from your perspective how we can all move forward and become better digital fundraisers. So Nathan, thank you. And I know we'll all stay in touch. It's a small nonprofit world,
Yes,
even though it's a big state. So just thank you. And if there's any follow-up questions from today's webinar, you can hop into Slack, and we are still active in Slack. So if you have any questions or want to share with each other, you can do so there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.